The district court judge is to develop a record, to get the evidence out, and then to rule on it. And I've often described their job as doing justice in the individual case. They've got two parties. They have to resolve that dispute according to the law. And so they're worried, basically, their attention is focused on these two people who sit before them. You get on an appellate court, and you're no longer the master of your courtroom. You now have to share responsibility with three people. And things that were routine as a district court judge now become a conference. The first day that I had to confer with my colleagues about giving an extension on the number of pages that somebody's brief had to be, I thought to myself, I'm going to hate this job. Seemed like such a silly waste of time, okay? It was a silly waste of time, but not institutionally, because that collaborative decision-making is what appellate work is about. It's sharing the responsibility of thinking through whether a lower court has made an error of law. And that is a process that takes some of the burden out of judging. Because when you can share your thinking and your analysis with two other people, and when you can work at convincing them that either you're right or they're wrong, or however you want to approach it, or them convincing you, it's a very satisfying job. But what circuit court judges are doing is more deciding justice for the law. You see, circuit courts are announcing what the law is for that circuit. There's 13 circuits in the United States. A number of states are divided up among the circuits. Mine was 3 states, but the 9th Circuit out in California has 9 states. And some have 3, I think, is the minimum, if I'm remembering correctly. But some have 4 or 5 or 6. But the circuits were divided according to their historical entry into the Union. And so the 2nd Circuit was actually the mother court. We take pride in claiming that we were the first court. The 1st Circuit got started right after us, maybe on the same day, but we still call ourselves the mother court. At any rate, what you're trying to do is find the legal errors in the decision below. And in doing that, you're trying to determine what you believe the law is, as dictated by precedent. So what happens when you get on the Supreme Court? If you didn't think you were master of the courtroom when you have 3 people, when you have 9, you're nothing. Alone. Because you have to decide something with at least a majority, with 5 people. And convincing 5 very independent, sometimes hard-headed, myself included, people is not an easy task. But what you're doing on the Supreme Court is announcing what the law says in a case where precedent doesn't necessarily control. By definition, the Supreme Court generally only takes, with few exceptions, only takes cases when there's a circuit split. What that means is that circuits below, among the 13, have disagreed as to what the answer is under the law. Assuming, as I think you should, that most judges, and certainly in panels of 3, are trying to do what's right under the law. The fact that they've disagreed means that there's no clear answer. And what you're asking the Supreme Court to do is to provide that clarity. But that also means that the responsibility on us is enormous. because our decisions generally involve matters that affect not the law of your circuit alone, but the law of the country and sometimes of the world. And so the Supreme Court is really the court operating where there is no clear answer in virtually every one of their cases. There is a real problem relying on the news to tell you what Supreme Court cases say. And I know we make it a little bit hard because when you pick up our opinions, they tend to be long, and they often have a lot of jargon. I encourage you, however, not to rely on the news as citizens. Actually read the opinions. When you do, and if you actually read them with an open mind, you'll often come out saying, they both seem right. How can that be? Well, that can be because the law is unclear, because precedents don't really settle that question. And you have to believe, the way I do, that this group of 9 are each passionate about trying to find the right answer. And even though we disagree as to what that answer may be or may not be, we all are filled with the same passion. That's how I can stand being sometimes on the losing end of a case.
So here's a more personal